Good afternoon, everyone. It's always challenging to do the last session and getting people in. And I know with the sun going down, you'd rather be out and, on the beach or enjoying yourself. But I guess we have to go through this, gentlemen, whether we like it or not. Let's start with James, and I'll probably allow all four of you to spend a minute just talking about yourself, who you're working for, what you're doing, and rather than I try to introducing you guys. So, James, go ahead.
Sure. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see more people sitting closer to the front, because historically everybody's been in the back. My name is James Kaplan. I work for a Thai public company called Minor International. We are both a hotel owner, developer, and operator. We also own hotels operated by third parties such as Four Seasons and Marriott and St. Regis. But our main brands that we're growing in this part of the world are Anantara and Oaks Service Departments and Avani upper upscale hotels. And we currently have 151 hotels in 23 countries. And we also have a food business with about 2,000 restaurants.
Frederic?
Hello, my name is Frederic Simon. I started Alila in Indonesia, which actually was an Indonesian homegrown brand and has now gone international. And 2 years ago, we brought into our capital a company called Commune Hotels and Resorts. And we are now operating globally and are representing different brands, being Alila brand, the Thompson brand, the Joie de Vivre brand, and the Tommy brand.
Nick?
Nicholas Clayton. Hello, can you hear? Is it projecting well? Thank you. Nicholas Clayton, I'm here representing Capella Hotel Group. I joined Capella Hotel Group in November of last year. I made that decision because it was a very exciting time in the company. The organization, the brand has been 14 years in the making and was founded by Horst Schulze, who's was the primary first employee of Ritz-Carlton. And he's been working for 14 years to develop the brand and to grow it internationally. I'm based out of Singapore and look out for all of the Asian development and operations. We have two brands. One is Capella. It serves the luxury segment, and our Solis brand serves the mainstream luxury market. And we have 17 hotels around the world, and we have some exciting openings in Shanghai and Bangkok and here in Bali coming up in the months ahead. Thank you.
Samir?
Hi, I'm Samir Nayar. Can you hear me all right? I run the strategic development group with the Oberoi group. Been with the company for the past 6 months. This is my second innings. Prior life in London in investment banking, M&A, capital markets for the past about 20 years in total, UK and India. Worked with Lehman, HSBC, Society General, but obviously intimately familiar with India and overseas markets. Pretty minion compared to the audience here in terms of hospitality and experience, but I'll put in what I can. Oberoi Groups, I'm sure most of you are familiar with, has been around in Indonesia since 1978. We've got hotels in Bali and Lombok, and obviously we've got plans for the country and for the region. We're looking to go more into gateway locations and in Southeast Asia, so I do hope to catch up with many of you again.
Thank you. James, I apologize. The last time we were on a hot seat, I had a nice masseur and multi shots. There's no space at the back, so I really couldn't organize that for you. Maybe next time.
I could have organized
But yeah, maybe we'll get some alcohol or something. But anyway, coming back, since we're in Bali, I'll start with the
cough medicine.
Sorry?
Is that cough medicine?
There you are.
There we go.
There you go. So we do have
It's
some.
very sympathetic. You knew we had a little bit of a head cold here after a couple days.
These are not shots. These are just to kind of get you a little hot and sweaty. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
Anyway, we'll carry on. Since we are in Bali, we're going to start with Bali, right? And what's your outlook for luxury market in Bali? And maybe I'll start with Frederic, since you have hotels in Bali.
Well, I think the luxury market is still a great segment in Bali, but it's obviously getting more competitive. There is a lot of supply coming. And if you take Bali, and you take
That's fine.
what could be the closest comparison, and you take Phuket, and you count the number of really beautiful hotels in Phuket, I think you're going to use one hand. If you have to do the same thing in Bali, I think you're going to use all your hands, your feet, and somebody else, because there's a lot of nice hotels. So what I think is happening today in Bali is that at the very, very high end, there's more and more competition. And I think this is affecting the rates, and I foresee that will continue to affect the rates. I mean, it's still a very strong market, but it does affect the rate.
So basically, you won't want these other gentlemen to open more hotels here.
No, actually, we're doing everything we can for them not to open, and but unfortunately, no, it's good. I think it's great for the island of Bali to have, such a quality hotel accommodations and supply. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of very high-end properties in Bali that are very beautiful and are well run.
Right. Nick, who did your feasibility to tell you to build a hotel in Bali?
Well, I first came to Bali 20 years ago when I was 12.
And a half.
Okay, so that's how we got this done. And it's taken a long time to get the hotel up to where it is.
Amazing, right? Yeah. But, the destination has matured and changed so dramatically. Its commercial success has put stress on many aspects of the experience. But I do still find myself charmed by Bali and find it to be totally unique, especially when one enjoys the enclave of their resort experience, wherever that may be. But I think that, again, great destination, great lift. We manage the Ayana Hotel. It's an extremely successful property. We have a couple things coming up in Ubud that will be add to that supply of upscale accommodation. But we have confidence in the destination overall, and we expect that nothing's going to go away. It'll just continue to thrive as a destination. So we're big on Bali and big on Indonesia.
James, how about you?
Yeah, same. There are a handful of destinations around the world that have the mix of culture, food, brand awareness. You have to tick the box and go to certain places, whether it's, Hawaii, Bali, the pyramids in Egypt. Bali's always had that very special place in the world tourism market, and as a result, we have all these wonderful hotels. And then you have had, over the past 7 or 8 years, the advent of the outbound Chinese traveler, and that's really fueling a lot of this growth and development with that new market segment. So for us, Phuket is our home. We have a strong base there. We have 2 hotels here. We're building a 3rd in Ubud, and we're looking for something, I think, quite a bit larger in Bali to, work with our reservation and distribution system. So it's very high on our radar as a place. There will be always oversupply because there's a lot of good things to do here. So everybody wants to be here. It's just a matter of competing, having the right product, the right staff, and the right positioning.
I'll just stick with you for a minute. I know you own a lot of your own assets. Minor is also an investor. Is that something you would look at, or are you coming in here with an asset-light strategy?
So of our portfolio of 151 hotels, we own approximately 40. We call it asset right. In Bali, we have a 50-50 joint venture with an Indonesian company to build the Ubud property, which will include hotel accommodation, residential for sale, and some of our timeshare. And we would look to replicate that model with the right project, with the right numbers.
Samir, how about you? Your outlook for Bali, your luxury market out here?
See, Manav, we've been in Bali for just under 40 years now, and it's a market that we've liked a lot. We've had a good run. There have been a number of proposals that have come through. I think over the last several years, the group's been pretty firm that we want to look at more on the management side, and that's still our focus in how we develop our assets, whether it's in Indonesia, Thailand, or other places in the world. We have a couple of land parcels in Ubud. We would look to do something with them at the right stage. With the group focus currently on the domestic market, we've invested. We've got almost about 50% of our key count coming up in India and overseas in the next 3 years. So we are slightly preoccupied with that, but certainly this is something which would come back on focus.
Any of you have a view on branded residential and how does that work with hotels? I mean, clearly, looking at the audience, there has been a fair amount of talk on branded residences. So any thoughts on that? Frederic, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think fundamentally branded residences, you got to think what's the end user and what's the person who's going to purchase it, why is he purchasing it. So in our case, we see really two distinctive type of guests that are villa owners, residential. You see people that are looking at not really using it that often and really want to have a return based on the success of the property because it goes in the rental pool. And I think, for example, our Seminyak property that just opened as part of the hotel that is like this, and looking at the numbers we've done in July and August and what we have on the books, I think they're going to be pretty happy. And then you have people that are buying more bigger residential that are actually going to use their primary point is 3-bedroom villa, 4-bedroom villa. I think their primary concern is more the service, the maintenance, and the capital gain that they can get on their villa. So I think both option works very well. This is what we've done very successfully in Uluwatu, for example, in Bali. Both option works excessively well, as long as the fundamental of the property is right. That means fundamentally you still need a hotel, and you still need to have a good hotel that operates, that is capable of marketing itself. I think hotels that are completely full 100% condominium, there's a risk associated to that that we personally don't like to get involved with.
Nick, would you do branded residences with your hotels?
Yes, I think that they have, as has been discussed on previous panels, I think that the residential component of a mixed-use development is a great financing mechanism. And I think whether it's the lender or whether it's the developer, it has a strong appeal. So where there's a market, where there's demand, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think that it would have stunted the growth of a lot of hotel development over these last years if that had not been a component of the hotel projects.
Sure. James, I'm going to just change the subject. There's been a lot of consolidation happening in the industries. Your ex-company was now being bought out by Accor and so forth. Do you think it's actually an advantage to have a smaller footprint as compared to being, let's say, particularly in the luxury space?
It's a hard question. I think with a smaller footprint, you can be more nimble, closer to the ground to your customers, and in the luxury space to really be a little more proactive in responding to customer needs and expectations. Increasingly, luxury isn't so much the hardware of the hotel you're staying at, it's more the experience. And I know we all hear that over and over again, but everyone in this room has had experiences with family at a particular hotel, and you identify with that hotel and identify with that brand, whether it was with a spouse or a child or a parent. You had a great experience, whether it was a meal or an event. That's what you kind of have to do. And the smaller hotels, I think, can be a bit more bespoke and do that better than the bigger platform. On the flip side, we do live in a world of scale. And, just looking at the OTA business and what it's done to our sales and marketing organization, what it's done at property level as far as the commissions and fees you pay these OTAs, and a lot of what Starwood and Marriott is doing with the merger is to try and be bigger than the OTAs. And bigger in that sense is probably better, but when you get into the luxury space, I think you got to be careful and not be too commoditized. So I think there is an advantage being smaller at property level, customer experiences. There's a disadvantage in that we don't have the scale, which is important.
Samir, do you have any views with, Oberoi, for example, in India is being right at the top, and now with so many of these international brands and consolidating, you're no longer one of the bigger players. You're becoming more. Do you see that as a disadvantage, or?
I think I echo some of the comments that James made earlier that, it's about the experience, and as a group, the entire organization is built on delivering good service. And that goes back to the very inception of the group, the very founding, the Oberoi Center for Learning and Development that we have. how we were profiled in the Harvard Business School review, which was all about delivering service from that. How do you transport service from one property to the other without compromising? So I think the question goes back: what is the right footprint, and what is the right scale, and how do you strike the balance? And I think where we see ourselves in India is, yes, there's a strong brand recognition. There is good quality associated. There is a good presence outside India in select markets. Where I think we need to add a little bit more is in the gateway locations, because given a choice, I'd be in a gateway location or a gateway city for the reason that it gets you that much more brand recognition and reach out to the customers. While at the same time, do we see ourselves doubling up or tripling in the next 5 to 10 years? That's not the answer. I think we just need to get into the right location and not lose out on the product.
So for my next question, it's a bit tricky. It's going to be, I want short answers. And today in the luxury space, you see extremes. You have, on one end, high-tech hotels with everything that you can keep connected, right? It's all about, you can do this, you can connect here and there. On the other hand, you have hotels, which are trying to create an escape. And if there was a line drawn in between, which side would you be on? You can't be on both sides.
Escape.
Escape.
Escape in a resort, probably high touch, high tech in a city.
You need to be on one side.
All right, and I have more resort.
One word.
One word.
Escape.
Escape.
Okay. So we're going to go check your marketing and come back to you and let you know if you are there or not. But no. Yeah, I mean, one other interesting thing that, while we're doing some research, according to TripAdvisor, just in Bali, the top 3 hotels in Bali in terms of performance are actually independent resorts. And that kind of ties into the whole fact of, whether do you really need a brand, or could you really be operating as yourself? So any thoughts on that?
I think that we all have, appreciated the success of certain independent properties that they've been launched or they've been in a mature cycle, and appreciated that they're highly successful and don't have the structure or support of a brand. But I think that is not particularly the rule. And I think when it comes to long-term sustainable distribution and professional management, that's where a brand comes into play. I also think in some of the emerging markets where the local brand or the local independent name would not be known or would be associated with anything, there's no context for the customer. They can go by imagery, they can go by TripAdvisor ratings, but sometimes that's just not quite enough or compelling enough for them. And that's where the brand gives great comfort and gives great, the promise comes through. I was traveling to Beirut for the first time, and I was looking at different hotel opportunities, and I decided to stay at a brand that I knew was going to be high quality. I knew that I wouldn't be taken down some street somewhere in the wrong turn. I could count on the staff and count on the experience, and that was of value to me. And it ended up being a wonderful stay. So,
right. Gentlemen, I hope you're enjoying your drink. I don't see any of you drinking.
I was. I could use a refill.
Okay.
Is that possible?
I'm sure everything is
Can
possible.
you arrange it in this hotel? You have some relationships.
I'm sure we have some connections.
Very nice. Thank you.
Anyway,
It's very thoughtful.
I'm sure someone's taking note
It's
of
very
that.
thoughtful of you, Manav. Very thoughtful.
Let's ask some easy questions, short answers. Have any of you ever worked in a mid-market or budget hotel? James? Or a hotel company that has got mid-market budget? I just want to see if you
work for
understand
in a hotel or for a company?
It doesn't matter. I just want to understand whether you understand that
Yes.
segment at all.
Yes.
Frederic?
Yes.
yes.
No. Okay, fair enough. What's the most difficult hotel market to operate in Asia? James?
Like to get paid or service or I think to get paid is China. I think to run a business, India.
Difficult to get paid in China, difficult to do business in India.
Yep.
Okay. Frederic?
Probably to get paid China, yes. I love India, so I always love going there. To be frank, Asia is not that difficult to operate because there is, we have the luxury of having, I think, great team and having more than in other part of the world. So I think we have a lot of positive things to operate in this part of the world.
You can give him a double. No one else has done this.
They changed the glass. Is there a reason for that, or is that just technique?
It's getting smaller.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's ultra luxury now. So, Nick, how about you? You've actually, I'm going to change the question for you, Nick. You've actually, in the last 10 years, worked in 3 continents, practically, right?
Yes.
You've done Asia, you went to the US, you did Middle East, and now you're back in Asia. So what are your views? Most difficult market to work in? Maybe first in Asia, and then you can give us a perspective, which is the best continent too.
Most difficult market to work in has got to be Europe because of stress on profit and margins. I think that we're very blessed, as Frederic said, we're very blessed in Asia with the fundamentals being right. I always think of, I think leisure because that's what our brand is. And I think about my own travel and how corporate for me is a very efficient experience. I want technology efficiency. I don't want much, but as soon as I go leisure, my expectations change dramatically. And in Asia, ability to provide luxury leisure experiences is phenomenal, and it can be phenomenally profitable. And the Middle East only offers that in select markets, of course. And then you would walk into the Americas, which has its own challenges, but still has potential. And then you walk into Europe with very, very big regulation to overcome, very high labor costs, and other difficulties which make margins difficult. So I much prefer operating in this region of the world.
Right. And in terms of doing development deals, is that any difference? I think you said India because getting deals done out there. Is the development side of it any different than operating side of it, Frederic? Or is it just as challenging everywhere?
I think probably India from the development. I mean, the interest rate at 14% and 67 hotel licenses needed to open a hotel. That puts a lot of pressure on the developer to consider doing a hotel development. And the price of land. So I would say probably India is one of the riskiest place for hotel developer to develop something.
So if I was to change the question and ask you that all of you hit the jackpot last night and you have $100 million now of your own money, if it was your own money, would you invest that into the hotel business or would you do something else with it?
Not really a fair question, Manav.
Come on, we all come across.
I would get him to build it for me while I manage.
No, I mean, listen, we're all hoteliers out here. We just need to know whether we're going to spend money where our mouth is, or are we going to take that money and buy ourselves a yacht and go off into somewhere. I don't know. $100 million is good money.
Is that levered or unlevered?
Unlevered right now. No, we just want to know, how about I change it? If you had a son or daughter, I'm sorry, but would you get them to go into the hotel business and follow your footsteps or not?
I have all of the above. I've talked to my children about that, and they see that it's really a passion and a commitment, and you either have it or you don't, and you can't sort of create it, because it's hard work, this industry, and they see it.
Yes or no?
None of my children are going into the hotel business.
Are you saying that or they're saying that?
They're saying that.
Okay.
And with the $100 million, I could see developing and having a hotel with branded resi and some mixed use that all work together. Yeah, I could.
I know it's not coming to India, so that's one thing quite clear. Frederic, how about you?
I just bought a 5-bedroom B&B in France, so I guess
For-
that answers,
for
not for
100
100 million.
For
but,
100 million, yeah.
That answers your question. Yeah, absolutely.
Nick?
Yeah, I think that you have to parlay if you're in the position and have liquidity, I think you have to parlay your experience and use it. I mean, if we haven't learned after the number of years in the business about what to avoid and what to embrace, then shame on us. So I think that I would be a very successful hotel developer as the investor, and would certainly do that. I would look for obviously the right metrics of good pricing, reasonable labor. I would definitely go with a big wellness component, because I think that's where the world of luxury leisure goes. And I would be very clever about how I manage the F&B in the hotel.
Nick, great answer. I think you need another drink. We'll just arrange more for you from the back. How about you?
I think it's a good question. I certainly put my money more onto, personally, I favor residences more than the hotels. It's just a more attractive asset class, and I'm putting on more of my financing thinking around it versus what passion that some of the gents here have. But certainly it's something which just deliver a good quality home to a person, which is managed, branded. It stands for the value that you want to bring into your guests, which is more short-term defined, and it could be for a much longer and a more different purpose.
I think, Manav, we all here have what are called deal screens, and we probably look at 400 or 500 deals a year. And how do you pick which ones to go with? And there's obvious, destination, owner, architecture. But for me, the red light, green light question is really simple. Would I invest my own money in the project? That's what I say to myself. And if the answer is no, I don't look at it. It's really quite that simple. And that's kept me out of trouble for 25 years.
So you're going to put the next 100 million that if you own, you would put it back.
You're going to lend it to me.
I'm not lending anyone. I've got my 100 million. I'm investing in hotels, so I'm on one side of the track. So
Manav's a committed hotel developer investor now.
There you go.
But that trick, and that's important for everybody. Like, would you put your money into it?
Well, that's a very fair point.
And the other one is, would I stay in that if it's a resort? Would I stay in a place with my family? If the answer is no, forget it.
Well, let me maybe twist the question. So if all of you are saying you might invest, would it be luxury, or would it be mid-market, or would it be upscale, or he said residential, so he's in the safe zone. But any thoughts on that?
Can I have one answer or two?
One.
You want me one pick or two?
One, okay.
Once you drink the second glass, we'll give you a second shot at another answer. No, I'm just kidding.
Are you having any, Manav?
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah, I think that I do respect and see very, very streamlined developments that hit the right amenities and touch points, and they serve the kind of 3.5 to 4-star, maybe at a push, market. And I have to say, I know their construction cost is tremendously efficient, but they're knocking down rates of, say $300 in some markets, and you have to have a lot of respect for that. I mean, bottom line. And again, I think the key is to figure out how to design the hotel with labor in mind, because labor doesn't go down. I don't know anywhere in the world where labor cost goes down. It only inflates itself over time. I was talking to our operator in Singapore, and it's a little bit of a challenging year there in Singapore. And we were talking about, I said, well, if we don't hold back on rate increases this year, when will we ever? You're just simply, complaining about something that keeps rising, but you're actually the problem. Is the whole group of hoteliers as they inflate and escalate labor charges from 3 to 5%. So I think it's very important to design hotels in a way that bring about the greatest level of long-term efficiency.
Right. James, question to you specific to Minor. You guys recently rebranded the Four Seasons in Bangkok, if I'm correct, right?
Yes.
You put your own brand.
That's correct.
That was a pretty bold move, seen by many. How's the experience been so far?
It's about a 14 Scotch conversation, Manav. Do you have time?
We can finish it off. Is that how badly you guys are doing?
So your question is, what prompted us to do it, or what's been the consequence of doing it, or both?
As long as you can give it in a minute, I'll let you do it whichever way you want.
Well, I'm a big admirer of Four Seasons, and our company continues to own 3 Four Seasons resorts. They, in my opinion, are probably the pinnacle of luxury branding. They've stuck to one hotel brand and done very well with it. Unfortunately, they don't listen very well. And so what happened in our situation is we own the St. Regis next door. in Bangkok. And after the St. Regis began to stabilize, we noticed something very interesting. And that was that the top line revenue was roughly the same, the bottom line revenue was dramatically different. So we began a conversation with Four Seasons, and they weren't listening. So they are no longer the operator of our hotel, and we rebranded it Anantara. Everybody said that was a crazy move. Why would you ever debrand a Four Seasons? And whenever you rebrand a hotel, whether it's a Sheraton to a Pan Pacific or a Marriott to a Radisson, whenever you rebrand, you're going to have a gap because of the sales and marketing infrastructure and the lag, and it's what we call the hockey stick. So we had the Four Seasons in Bangkok, and the hockey stick definitely went down. The rate, business, it definitely fell. But at the end of the hockey stick, you come back up. The problem for us was the come back up part actually took a lot longer than we thought. And there were a variety of reasons, which I can get into later, why that was. But last month, finally, we have exceeded performance of where we left off with Four Seasons. So the short answer is it was a successful transition, but a little more painful than we thought.
Right. Frederic, Commune Hotels recently finished its merger with Destination Hotels earlier this year. I think it was this year or maybe late last year, I'm not too sure. But
Late last year.
does this allow you to enter the resort market with like more renewed vigor, or?
Well, we're going through a rebranding or a brand architecture exercise, and particularly towards the resorts. So I think our focus in Asia still remains. You know, we've got 12 hotels open in Asia and about 28 under development, and a lot of them are resorts. So I think we're pretty covered on resorts. Our strategy now is to get more CT properties, and that, I think the Thompson brand is the right way for us to go. So the real focus in terms of development for us is to get really key getaway CT under the Thompson brand. We'll see what as part of the brand architecture, what happened to Destination Hotels were a soft brand. You know, JDV was a soft brand. We had resorts in both, so we need to understand what happened to those two soft brands.
Samir, I know the Oberoi Hotels was voted one of the best hotel brands by Travel and Leisure in 2016, and I know you guys have now done that consistently. What is it that sets you apart? And if you are so good that you are in that part of the world and you're being recognized, why haven't you really gone out there and expanded?
Certainly. Let me answer the first part about what we think sets us apart. There's obviously, it's a reader's poll of Travel Leisure, which has been 2 years in running, that it's been voted as a top brand, apart from other accolades that we've got from Institutional Investor and the World Travel Awards and some other publication. I think going back to, there was a debate earlier on, I think in the session, I think this morning or yesterday, about whether it's a product business or it's an experience business or it's a service business. And you've got to take all of those and some of the themes we heard about, what's the right footprint and what's the right scale. So my net summary, and which I think is a big reason why we are successful, is it goes back to the experience we can create for the guest. Yes, the rooms are important. The height is important. Yes, the lobby, the public spaces, everything's important. Anywhere where the guest goes is important. However, even overarching all of that is the experience through the service that you can deliver. It's the interaction with the human being, and in the session earlier in the morning, there was a bit of bashing around how the banks do a very poor job at it with the call centers which are not empowered. In our organization, we take that very seriously. Every employee has this empowerment program of spending up to about $25 US to make the guest happy, whether it's replacing your slippers in the room, your toothpaste, to ordering a drink for you, or just whatever they want to do for the guest. And it's every employee which doesn't need an authorization. And it's just understanding and anticipating what a guest needs. So I think it's the service factor and understanding the human bit of it, which is ingrained in the culture. And I go back to the foundation of the group and the Oberoi Center that we've been running for the past 50 years. We do not charge any fee. Everyone's welcome to employee post-graduation. 60 candidates out of 10,000 are selected. They're free to leave if they like to leave after the program is finished. And I think vast majority of the top general managers in India today are from the Oberoi. So there's a reason for that. why we haven't been able to translate as much into international expansion. I think that was your second question, which we've done, and it goes back to the point of how we, or the past group has thought of expanding, and which is you've got to be able to preserve that experience and be able to transfer it from one hotel to another. We've operated in in cities which we are no longer there, and we'd love to go back, whether it's in Melbourne or it's in Singapore. We'd be very happy to look at all locations in London and New York and other places, and it's just getting the right location. And for one reason or the other, there have been some attempts in the past, but that's what my job is, and we should be getting there.
A lot of people say the Oberoi's is a family-run business. Is that a disadvantage?
It is certainly, it is a family run, but I wouldn't call it as family run in the typical sense of that it's a family shop. It's still institutionalized. It's a publicly listed company. It's got more than 4,000 people.
One man calls the shot, though.
Huh?
One man calls the shot.
The man is important, extremely diligent. He's taken the group to we talk of the attention to detail, and we talk of the quality of the experience and the service. Certainly, it's Mr. Oberoi is the founding father and leading it. To say that there are other people who are delivering that experience and who have the Oberoi DNA ingrained in them is very true. There have been many lifers in the organization who've done upward of 30, 40 years. So certainly, there are advantages and disadvantages. There is a narrow bandwidth because if you have a few people that you rely on, and not everything gets institutionalized, but it's a great product still that we deliver at the end of the day.
Right. I'll be happy to take any questions from the audience, and maybe you can just write it down and pass it on if any of you have that. Meanwhile, Nick, recognizing the importance of the Chinese traveler, right? For the last 10 years, certainly everyone is talking about the number of Chinese tourists coming through. Do you see that with any other countries, Russia, India? I don't know. Is that the Chinese traveler so important? Because you all said that it's very difficult to perhaps work with in China. So are we too dependent on them?
I think it's just the reality of the demographics of the world. And I remember I was in Hong Kong when we first started to see the visits to Macau and to Hong Kong in those early days, and it was so exciting because RevPARs were jumping up at 12, 14%, year on year, and it was tremendous lift and gets you very excited. But the penetration is unbelievable. I was in Colombo last week, and at breakfast, 1/3 of the guests there were definitely of Chinese descent. And I was just, very impressed that they are, going beyond what would be the kind of mainstream destinations and investigating further out. And so I think it continues. It's amazing. It's a wonderful thing. I think that what's really on the flip side of that is the difficulties in Russia have taken the froth off of many markets that we've enjoyed for the last some years, whether that's Dubai or whether that's the Maldives or whether that's London or other capital cities and resort destinations. But you and I had a little bit of an exchange about the Indian market, and when will we see the same kind of surge from India, a very populous nation that has not had the restrictions like China on travel, have been free to travel for all this time, and have an affluent traveling market today. But there should be a middle class surge that happens hopefully in the years ahead that helps to complement China and gives us that next big market. There was lots of positive conversation about the Indonesian middle market as well. And so another very populous country that hopefully in the near term will start to produce a lot more outbound travel from the country.
I just want to add to that question that you brought up about Indians traveling. I think one of the problems India faces is the high cost of air travel in and out of the country. And that prohibits people from coming in or leaving, and it's all stuff. I mean, talk about Indonesia and India. If there was a direct flight from Indonesia from Bali to India, I can bet you you would
There's
have
gonna
a
be one soon.
10% increase in Bali numbers
Yeah.
just by having a direct flight.
Yeah.
So I think there's so much more that can be done, and it's unfortunately tied down to bureaucracy between the two governments. But that's something for us to work with. Coming back, I just wanted to, since you guys understand luxury so well, I just want to ask. I'll start with you, James. Can you share with us perhaps one or maybe two key trends that you see will happen in the luxury space in the next 3 years?
Sure. Probably the biggest trend is wellness. And wellness is different than going to a spa and having a massage and your treatment. Wellness is really resetting your mind on a different way of living, eating, how you get on with your day-to-day activities. And we see today, primarily more in the Middle East, an enormous problem of diabetes and obesity in young people. And so luxury and wellness, going to a wellness destination for 10, 15, 20 days, going through dietary regime, counseling, exercise, and then going back once a year for a refresher. We see that as an enormous opportunity. And Asia, because of the reputation for service and looking after people and healthy living, can probably leverage off of that trend quite a bit. So I see that as one of the main areas.
Sure.
The second area I see, and it's not so much luxury, although there is a place for it, is religious tourism. And there are increasingly people who just want to have that moment with their spiritual leader and self and God and have a time with their family, whether it's in Mecca or in Bodh or Jerusalem, wherever it may be. But religious tourism is an enormous growth area, not specifically luxury, but indeed there is that segment that will do that more.
Right. Frederic? Two trends?
I think it's the real trend. I think to me, wellness is one I would have certainly named. The second one is I think there is a sophistication. I mean, we're talking about the Indian market, we're talking about the Chinese market, we're talking about all those markets as if they were different human beings. They're not. They're just China went in 10 years from 5 million middle class people to 280 million. It's just. And those people, when they first have a certain buying power, they want to buy brand that they think are aspirational, Louis Vuitton bag or a Cartier watch or whatever they think is luxury. And I think there is an entire generation now that are completely changing. We see it. I see it in China. I mean, it's incredible. I see it in India as well, that are really wanting to have a one-of-a-lifetime experience. And
Right.
It's no longer about buying a brand or buying a known brand or buying a very luxury brand. It's about the product and the experience that is being delivered. So to me, I think that's perfect for the segment. All of us are here because we're not the most famous brand. And I think this is an opportunity of seeing more and more guests that are going to realize that at the end, we are artisan. We all are a smaller company. We put a lot of attention to what we're doing, and are going to want to have a real experience. And I think that's going to get us a lot of both brand awareness and brand loyalty.
Right.
And last but not least, I think people are more and more concerned about environment, which is a good thing. What they eat, the quality of what they eat. I think the slow movement as a whole is going to be a very important movement for luxury properties.
Nick, two trends that you think that next 3 years would...
Just to complement James's comment on wellness, I was very impressed to see here in this beautiful resort not just a spa, but a medi-spa. So it's a separate offering, very extensive menu, giving a little plug to the hotel. I think it's a great job. I think it's very, very, very smart. I talked to several local people who are using this facility, this medi-spa, and they go into all types of anti-aging and resculpting and so forth and so on. And I just think that, as a global population ages, this is just more and more appealing. It could be for the acute health issues, as you pointed out, obesity, or it could be the vanity side of the coin, where people just want to look the best that they can as they age and age gracefully. So I think that is definitely the biggest thing. I think that there's an inquisitive tourist. There's a tourist that would like to understand more. It's not for me.
That's because you're aging gracefully.
Yeah, it's not. Just so you know, I have one right here. No, I'm fine.
You're pathetic, Nick.
You have them both ways?
I think that there's people that actually want to know more about the places they visit legitimately. And I think that there's been sometimes superficial attempts to celebrate that, perhaps accentuated in a way that's really not true, maybe not as true experiences as can be created. So I think that people like to walk away from leisure experiences, visiting new places, and feel like they really, really got to know the destination. And so I think that that's an opportunity.
Sure. You have anything to add?
Certainly, I think vast number of points have been covered off, but a couple of things which personally I'm kind of favoring more is, there's never been more wealth creation at a younger age than has been in the last, I'd call it 10, 12 years. What that means is, whether it's the .com millionaires, billionaires, the youth, the hand-me-down, the inheritance, whatever definition you put to it, whether it's in the developed markets or the emerging markets of, the people who benefited from China opening up or the Indian markets opening up, all of those benefits and the money is now out in the market with a much younger segment of people. And the question we ask ourselves, and I ask myself, is what is luxury to them? Is it what was it to their parents? Is Four Seasons, the Ritz-Carlton Reserve, their aspirational brand amongst these, or is it a younger brand? What do they look at it? Is it the room? Is it the room specs? Is it the public? Is it the experience? And I think that's something whoever can crack that problem would be best placed. Because not to say that the other market would not go, or the conventional market will not go away, but will go away. But it's that this market doesn't still have that right mix of the participants who are addressing the needs of this younger market. So I think that is something which we should all be asking, where is that trend going to go? What are these younger generation, the millennials, the guys who've made several million at this young age, where would they like to spend their money? Yes, there is a lot of ostentatious purchase, but is it the end all, or could it be different? Are they more after the experiences, or what kind of brands would they associate more with? The second bit, which goes back to discovering that Nick pointed out about new areas and all, I think I'm personally very passionate about is it's just the unknown, the terrain which doesn't exist, where people do not go, where it just goes back to, yes, you've bought a bag, yes, you've been in a Ritz-Carlton, now where do you go? What do you do? So is it a diving experience somewhere in a remote island? And a luxury operator is the one who would just take it end to end for them, to my mind, is a big opportunity.
Right. I know the time is flashing, but one or two last questions. Donald Trump, right? Nothing would be over without that. I mean, is he good for is his presidency, should he become the president, is good for business, or is it bad for business? James? There's no one from MNC here right now, so it's okay.
I'm an American, you can tell by my accent, and it's unfortunate that a country of 320 million people can't pick two sane individuals to run as president of the United States. So we are where we are, and I don't think it's really Donald Trump. It's really, he manifests 40 years of frustration among a certain segment of the American population, and that's what's happening. He becomes a mouthpiece for that frustration, and it's a little sad and very scary. I will say, and I've said this in front of our board, I've been in this business for 28 years, and I've been through Asian financial crises, coups, terrorist attacks, you name it. There's always an end. You can always quantify and move forward. This year has been a really tricky year, partly because of Mr. Trump creating the uncertainty and instability, partly because of Brexit creating a whole other degree of instability and uncertainty, partly because of ISIS, partly because of the Saudis bombing Yemen, partly because of the Chinese and what they're doing in the South China Sea, and there's probably half a dozen other partly because ofs, but because they're all so different and you can't get your hands around it, it's like Jell-O, there's this uncertainty, and that uncertainty is creating a result of the people, whether the family in Atlanta or Manchester or Yokohama, just might not make that big holiday to the Maldives this year. But more importantly, for what we do, the guy or lady or family or institution looking to make that $100 million hotel investment just might not do it this year. So Mr. Trump is just a piece of a bigger puzzle where there's this tremendous uncertainty, and the digital economy, social networking, all of that has accelerated it and brought it into everybody's living room in real time. So it's very complicated. Very
Right.
complicated.
Anyone else want to have a comment on Donald Trump? Or shall we just, like some people said, dump him for now?
That was beautifully said, by the
Okay.
way. We gotta applaud him. I completely
Yeah, very well
agree.
said, I must say. Yeah.
I think you want a
James for running
James.
for the next presidential.
James,
I think we need a different
that was
hotelier.
good.
in the
You
White
need another
House.
whiskey, man.
He's from the hotel business. You guys should be cheering him on.
We need a different
No, that was
hotelier, I
good.
think.
That was good.
You know, what could he do for the hotel industry? No one else can do because he knows how to run hotels.
He does.
He knows everything.
He knows how to lose money, too.
Yeah.
Okay, last two questions because I think the time is up. I'll make it very easy. You just have to give me 2 words or 3 words. Your favorite destination in Southeast Asia and your favorite hotel in Southeast Asia. Please don't mention your own hotels. And the 2 can be because they're in the same location or they could be in different locations. But, you know, we'll start maybe with you, Samir. Your favorite destination in Southeast Asia and your favorite hotel. And it cannot be an Oberoi.
It cannot be an Oberoi.
Thailand,
Okay?
Koh Samui.
But hotel. Any particular hotel that comes to mind?
I like the banyan tree there.
Okay.
Very nice.
Nick?
Oh, my. James, do you have that thought through?
I do.
Go
Yeah.
for it. Yeah, go for it.
Shall we come back to you? Do you need a drink maybe? No. Frederic, we'll come back to you. We'll let you think a bit more.
Favorite destination, Raja and Pat. without
Sorry?
a doubt. Raja and Pat, which is beautiful next to Papuesi, well, part of Papuesi. Incredible seas, incredible diving. Favorite hotel, probably the Sukhothai. I find that hotel absolutely magical.
Right.
Favorite destination would be Sri Lanka, and favorite hotel would be the Dharma Wangsa in Jakarta.
Same designer.
Right. Seen both of them.
Same
Nick?
designer.
Need more time?
Jaya.
Do we do this at the bar?
I actually come back to Bali and the way it makes me feel and the connection and so forth. And I think that I think honestly the Four Seasons has very good positioning here with the beach and the jungle, and I think they do a good job. And I've stayed at both, and I think they're well run and they deliver on the promise. So I'm pretty high on those 2 properties here in Bali.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. We can carry on. I know the sun has gone down. Thank you so much for coming.